Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Counselor's Couch 101. I appreciate your comments and your emails, particularly your long emails with a discussion of something that can be of general interest to the public or the population, the viewers who come here. So I appreciate those. Continue sending them. It gives me ideas for what to talk about. Recently, I was reminded of a client I had years ago. Hate to say, but it was a few decades back, right? This woman, at the time that I was attempting to work with her, she had had many therapists before and none had succeeded. And so I was told at the time not to expect much success with the lady. But what happened to her was, she would like to say, she was about 40 years old. She had 4 kids, maybe 5, not sure. And she would call her father up on the phone. Of course, he would never answer, but she would leave voice messages or recordings or whatever back in the day. And she'd be screaming at him. She would be saying things like, "You have to help me. We're hungry. It's cold. I have no place to stay." She would leave these messages for her father, and her father simply refused to respond. Why? I imagine you can guess. He had tried to help this lady all through her life, and all she did was take advantage of him, right? In the past, he had rented her apartments, furnished them completely, stocked the refrigerator with food, their utensils. He had clothes for the kids, maybe give her a car, etc. And all she would do was use up all the resources and somehow or another get herself thrown out of the apartment building, lose the car or smash it in an accident, or have the children taken away and she was thrown out of the apartment for other reasons. On and on. The gentleman, the father of the client, the lady, he had spent a fortune trying to help her, and it didn't do any good. He eventually learned that he had to stop. It simply wasn't helping and was actually doing a disservice to those kids. Now, the father of the woman, the grandfather of the children, really thought that children should have been taken away, but for some reason, social services would not take those children. They would take them for a day or two, and then the mother would always get them back. We don't know how she did it, but she kept managing to convince social services that the kids would be better off with her, right? Another part to the story, there are many parts. The father of the woman, the grandfather of the children, had a standing offer. He said, "I will take the children. I will raise them. They can live here." By the way, I forgot to mention, she grew up in a well-to-do family in a very nice neighborhood. She went to good schools. This is the mother of the children. And to begin with, she had good grades, right? She was at the top of her class. She was on a roll and all these sorts of things. And she managed to keep doing that until about the middle of high school, right? A good school, good family, and enough money to take care of all needs and have no worries about anything. She started smoking marijuana in junior high school. It didn't seem to affect her schoolwork, but slowly over time she got more and more involved with a downward spiral. And apparently she started using heavier drugs somewhere along the way. And it got to the point that she didn't even graduate from high school, right? She started with a good beginning. She ended up not even being able to graduate from high school. She didn't have the credits and she wouldn't show up and do the work, right? So, back to the father of the girl, the woman, the mother of the children. He offered to take the children. He said, "At any time you want, you can bring them here. I will raise them. They will have a nice home. They will have benefits. They will have clothing. They'll have food. I will make sure they get into good schools. I will make certain that they do well in school. I will provide their every need." And yet this mother would not release the children. And I imagine you can guess why. Um, Once upon a time, they used to have a phrase, they called it a meal ticket, right? Back in the day, that's what they were. Those children were the woman's meal ticket. It, they managed to get her the basic necessities for herself and her children so that she could go off and do the things that she wanted to do with her life, which involved apparently a lot of drugs. Now, it's easy to say you can't help an addict. That's no one's fault. There's nothing you can do about that. But I wonder about that. What turns someone into an addict? How does someone go from honor roll to not even finishing high school, right? And you'd think sooner or later, if someone did go down that path, somewhere about 19 or 20, or maybe a little bit older, they'll start to think, I don't think this is working. And they might want to make a different decision in life, right? Let's say, okay, I got to stop some of this bad behavior. I have to get it together. I need to go back to school. I need to go to college. I need to make a career, because she was an intelligent woman, right? What happened to her? I imagine, I have no proof of this at all, but looking back and over the years of experience with folks and like that, I suspect something happened to her emotionally. Oftentimes, those emotional wounds come from the family. Not always, but oftentimes that's what happens. And I don't know what it was. She never would acknowledge it or even identify where those early wounds came from, if they were indeed there. Maybe she just so loved her drugs that she couldn't stop. At any rate, she couldn't identify any of that. She wouldn't even discuss taking drugs, right? But it was extremely obvious that she was. You could look at her. She was 40 years old and she looked 65. Drugs and alcohol will age you. And she looked like she had been through 20 miles of bad road, right? I don't say that to disparage her. I say that to say that was the net effect of all this. And also, think of the effect on the children. She was dragging them around. Oftentimes, she would get some sort of um, what they used to call a beater car, and the kids would be sleeping in that at night, right? And she would drive around, find some place to park, and tell the kids to go to sleep and the like. They must have been traumatized by that experience of growing up there. The grandfather wouldn't have anything to do with her or the children, right? He wanted to see them, he wanted to feed them, but he knew if he did that, it would be just being codependent with her bad behavior, and he would be continuing it, and it would continue to harm the children. He knew that. He said, I'll take them, but you can't come here. He had tried that a few times as well. He let her move in with her first couple kids or so, and all she did was steal from him and go out and buy drugs and stay out for weeks at a time, leaving the kids running around the house with no supervision, because of course the father had to work, etc., etc. And had she worked out some sort of a system with them, he would have gotten them babysitting and whatever they needed for their safety. But she didn't do any of that. She kept telling them she'll take care of her own kids, etc., etc. So the father learned, I can't do anything that's going to prolong this woman's behavior. It has to stop, right? But the thing that just sort of echoes down through time is the memory of the way she was screaming through the phone, right? She sounded just like a banshee, wailing, wailing, wailing about all the bad things that had been done to her and the things that she needed that were not being provided miraculously by the universe, right? And the reason this came to mind recently is because I'm talking with a couple who has a 15-year-old daughter who seems to be headed in exactly that same direction, right? And the parents are pulling their hair out. They're saying, we don't know what to do with this girl. She refuses, in essence, she refuses to go to high school. Not that she won't go, but the fact that she won't do any work there, right? And she's out blaming parents and causing a fuss and then having fits. She's cutting herself. She's threatening suicide. She's doing all sorts of wild talk. She has been taken to the hospital, the psychiatric unit, several times, right? And she has gone through every outpatient program in the area, every single one of them. And each one of them asked her politely to leave because she wasn't doing the work and she was defying simple rules and behavior guidelines. She wouldn't do it. And the defiance. And how do you stop a 15-year-old's defiance? It sort of seems like you can't, right? If this young girl is bent on self-destruction, how do you stop it? And as far as anyone knows, she's not doing, excuse me, she's not doing hard drugs. She is smoking marijuana when she can get away with it because, of course, it's not allowed in the programs that she's in. but she does smoke and she does test positive for marijuana when they do test her. But how do you stop somebody who is bent on self-destruction, right? What do you do? I mean, the hearts of the parents are breaking. They love this daughter. She's very pretty. She was intelligent. Who knows what her intelligence level is now because of what she's doing to herself. Um, but she had all the advantages, or enough advantages, to be successful and happy in life, and she seems to be throwing it away. If anyone has any suggestions on how to help with this, please put them in the comments below, or better yet, send me a long email discussing your experience with it. But the thing of it is, I suspect that the same thing that's happening to this 15-year-old is what happened to that older lady that I knew years ago. Something emotional happened to them at a young age, and they are reacting to it. Clearly, this girl is fighting back at something that she doesn't like. And I'm not sure it's just a question of I don't like school, right? A lot of people felt that way, but a lot of us got through it anyway. I don't think it can be that simple. Something deeply is wounding this child. And the problem is she won't share that. How can you help somebody with the problem that they won't let you help with? They won't even tell you what it is. They just see the reaction of it. You don't know what the source of it is. So that's the sort of deal we're dealing with here. And I look at this girl and I told the father, I said, you know, this is the making of a banshee. I think this girl is headed in exactly the same direction as the woman from years ago. And if they don't want help and they refuse to allow anyone to help, what are you supposed to do to help them? Do we have to let them self-destruct? Is that the only thing that'll work? For the lady years ago, she never did come out of her tailspin that I know of. By now, she's hopefully stopped having children. The children should be adults by this time. I'm sure they're suffering the emotional scars from being dragged around in the way they were forced to grow up. But it'd be interesting to talk to them and see what their experience was and what they thought, because they were with their mother 24/7. They didn't go to school. And you know, they would have known, they would have been able to describe her behavior better than anyone else because they were with her all the time. Maybe they had some insight into her emotional landscape, and maybe knowing that would allow us to help the 15-year-olds of today. And I don't mean to side out women, ladies. Please don't think I'm trying to be sexist or misogynistic or anything. That's just something that happens to these particular women and to other women. Gentlemen have their own problems, and they have a lot of very serious difficulties and challenges out there. We're not saying they don't. This is just a discussion of this particular sort of result, and where does it come from, and what do we do with it? A banshee in the making. How do we understand such a girl, and how do we help her? You got any insights on that? I'd love to hear them, because it's the people who've been through it that can give us the most information, not necessarily the counselors who are wondering how to get the girl to open up to them and trust them. So, have any thoughts about it? Any insights? Banshees in the making. What causes it? How can we help them? How can we connect with them? Just wondering. As always, I enjoy being here with you. I look forward to seeing you next time. Please have a wonderful holiday.